Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. There's Bugsy Malone coming back with a new ball. New balls, please. I hope you are all happy and healthy doing the things that you love with those you love to do. Do me a favour, guys. Smash the like button for me if you enjoy these Tottenham updates. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell and drop some comments. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. And come of the hour, come of the dawn, guys. The transfer links are heating up. The stories are there. There's never-ending amounts of transfer rumours. Is it just because silly season has started early, or is it because the Don is getting to work? Let's start with some managerial updates. Yesterday we talked about Simeone Inzaghi. I was criticised in the comments by saying, why would he leave Inter and come to Tottenham? I would always argue, money, baby. Money is the number one reason why people do things in business. But I also think that there's a long list of managers that have gone before that have arguably higher pedigrees, higher sort of claims for the status symbols, if you like, of who was better in the annals of history than Simeone Inzaghi, and they have failed. And so people say, why would you come to Tottenham as a poison chalice? Well, the other side, the flip side of that argument is, if you fail, you just join the list of people that have failed before you. If you succeed, which we hope Ange will do, then you become a very rare entity in the recent storybooks, the history books, as someone who's brought success to Tottenham. Not many managers can claim that, and many managers have tried. So Simeone Inzaghi may be the next guy to give it a crack. But today's story is not about him. Today's story is all about Xavi. Ex-Barcelona Xavi. I don't know what to say about this guy. I think he's a really good fit. I think he's a really interesting player. He's got a wonderful blend and a dynamic shape to his football. He's interested in playing a certain way, but he's happy to kind of work with the team. He's got a fantastic pedigree of working with the best young talent and getting the best out of them. He was, of course, the guy who, broached the topic of playing Yamal at, 16 years old at the time, and now he's played 100 games and he's still only 17, and he's almost got a 50% goal contribution ratio at 17 years old. It's quite incredible. There's conversations around, is this guy better than Messi? I mean, I think you'd have to be wildly optimistic to sit there and make those sorts of claims so early, but he certainly is a real talent. And Xavi was the guy who sort of bled that guy through, or that kid into the first team. So brave, not afraid to trust his gut, not afraid to go with the notion that if you're good enough, you are old enough. And he's very, very good at working with young players. And Tottenham have a lot of young players. And so finding the right next manager is going to be crucial, given where we are, given the external variables that are outside our control that are affecting footballing opportunities right now, with the kind of 7 or 8 teams that are reasonable chances for the Champions League spots next season. It's going to be crucial to find a manager that is capable and used to and willing to work with the youth system, especially in a world where we don't have bags and bags of money to play with. Now, again, I don't subscribe to that notion. I don't think we won't have as much as we could have if we won the Europa League, but in a world where we don't win the Europa League, this notion that we're sort of crying pauper, it doesn't make any sense. Last season, we only had a 4.5% revenue drop from the season before. Last season, of course, Tottenham's fewest games ever played in the Premier League era because of our cup exits so early in the campaigns. The season before, we had European football and the Champions League version of it. So only to have a 4% drop-off in revenue, basically maintained because of our commercial endeavours. Next season, we have twice as many match or non-match day events to work with as we have had this season, I believe. And don't forget, guys, we had a £70 million bid rejected on deadline day after the Matisse Tell deal was organised. And so the notion that we don't have anything to work with in the summer if we don't qualify for European football, to me, is just paper spin and a load of BS. But it is what it is, and so Tottenham may push the notion that you have to work with youth, and so we're looking for a manager that can do that. And Xavi, for me, is certainly a guy that I'd be more than happy to see come in. I'd be surprised if he did come in, but I'd be more than happy if he did. I think he's out of work as well at the moment, so therefore there'll be no kind of compensation packages to pay, no sort of difficulty in the negotiation. All you've got to do is sell the story, and with Fabio coming back and hopefully other members of the staff also moving on, we're going to talk about one of those in a minute, because we have a Ryan Mason story to drop. He is we're going to talk about it right now. He is in all of the press this morning. He is West Bromwich Albion's top target for his first managerial job outside of Tottenham Hotspur in his career. And I really do think that's the best news for Ryan Mason. I'm not saying this in the kind of vindictive way where I want him to leave the club, because I just don't think he's good enough. I think it would be good for him, and he's a Tottenham boy. I wish him all the best in the world, and hopefully he can go on to wonderful things and then come back one day in the future and lift the trophy as first team manager, but not because he's a caretaker and because he's part of the furniture. At some point you have to, fly the nest, if you like, and see what you're made of in a world that isn't too comfy and too known to you. And I think that it's really good news if he does go and get the job at West Brom. It's a nice level for him. Championship football, I think they just missed out on the top 6, so they won't be in the playoffs this year, West Brom, but maybe next year they can under a kind of flying solo Ryan Mason. It'll be interesting to see. However, that deal that would have been progressed further than it currently has been is on ice because of Tottenham's Europa League exploits, and when that finishes, when the season finishes, that will probably be sewn up. So it'll be interesting to see there what happens with regards to Ryan Mason. Good luck to him if he goes, and I think that's good news for Tottenham as well. I think that if we're going to start a new process, a new project under Vinny, under Fabio, and likely a new manager, then I think that that manager should want to come in and bring his own staff with him. I think that that stuff is important, and I think that, you know, it'll be nice to be able to have a manager that knows his ecosystem, knows what he wants, is familiar with the people around him, and that there's no surprises. There's no need to disseminate the information from the manager to the coaching staff before the coaching staff can disseminate it to the players. And I think that that was kind of an unnecessary hurdle that we had seen over the last couple of years with Ange Postecoglou. Now, listen, we don't know whether Ange will be here or not, and I'm not even going to be sort of talking too much more about that or wishing a certain way. I'm just suggesting that those are the stories out there today, that Xavi is in fact the front runner, and the odds on him coming to Tottenham right now are as short as 2-1 when we're still in the Europa League and we still have a manager in place that is the favourite to win the cup, and in so doing becomes Tottenham's most successful manager in 45 years. It's quite wild to be a Tottenham fan right now. As I said 1,000 times, it couldn't be more black and white, but yet in football there is always a shade of grey. What shade depends on your personal preference and your personal slant of positivity or otherwise around any given topic. For me, I'm happy to see Xavi come in. If he does come in 2-1 odds, I think it's a bit short, to be honest. I think that those numbers seem to be saying that there's news out in the market. That seems to be a little bit short given the circumstances in which we find ourselves. Now, if he does come in, or if it is Simeone Inzaghi, if it's Thomas Frank, if it's Pochettino, whoever it might be, then of course they're going to need some support in the playing staff ranks. And where do we look for those sorts of stories? Well, we go back to the transfer windmill and we come up with some stories. Today, guys, we've got Pedro Porro, £80 million transfer bid, allegedly inbound very soon from Manchester City, the team that I think Pedro Porro never actually set foot in Manchester, never went to their training ground. I think he had their medical, I believe. I could be wrong about this, but I believe he had a medical whilst he was over in Portugal, stayed in Portugal, went through the youth system, was loaned back out, and then obviously sold to Sporting. And then when Sporting sold him to us, there was a sell-on fee that some of that fee went to Manchester City. I think it was quite a lot, actually, about 17 million or something, like maybe 35-40% of the player's salary, the player's fee went back to Manchester City. So it's interesting that you shoot forward a couple of years and that Manchester City now are possibly looking at him as the long-term replacement for Kyle Walker. And in so doing, I would have to pay £80 million. That is, of course, according to, I think it's John Wenham, or was it Graham Bailey this morning, one of the two guys who are sort of rife at the moment with their transfer stories and their pushings of narratives, and we love to see it. We love to see it as a content creator. Thank you very much. Bring it on, bring it on. But Pedro Porro, £80 million. Look, with this one, I think it's a difficult one because you look at the player and you think, well, there's things about him that are just irreplaceable, that Tottenham haven't really managed to replace. You know, Kyle Walker-Peters, Kieran Trippier, have we really done the right business getting that right-back position sorted? And it's so crucial whether you have a wing-back system or a full-back system. In these day and age, with the width of football and the speed and the pace in which it plays, you need a very specific type of player for a very specific system. And Pedro Porro is excellent at the things that a Manchester City would play, the way that they would play it, the excellence around them, the way that Liverpool would play, and the way that Liverpool kind of afford Trent Alexander-Arnold the wiggle room, the freedom to not necessarily have to focus or be criticised or critiqued too much, chastised for his defensive vulnerabilities because of how excellent he is with the ball at his feet. And Pedro Porro, I would argue, is kind of like a poor man's version of Trent in that regard, just as vulnerable defensively, not quite as exceptional, and that's no disrespect to Pedro Porro because Trent Alexander-Arnold is a sort of generational talent in that regard from that position. They both like to invert. What's interesting is the thought processes, I guess, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, guys, so let me know, drop a comment below, is how valuable is that ability to cross the ball in? As I said 1,000 times, I know you guys all feel the same about this, that Tottenham attack down one side in one method and the other side in another method. When it's on our left-hand side, whether it's Matisse Tell that's out on the left wing and Destiny Udogie behind him, when Jed Spence's behind him, when it's Sonny, whoever it is that's playing on the left-hand side, that's the sort of transition, that's the method, that's the area of the pitch in which we like to take players on and try to get to the byline and whip the ball in that way, either low or high. Down the right-hand side, it seems far more used as a method where Brennan Johnson sort of gets the ball up there and then eventually turns around, gives up the goose, he's not going to take a man on, plays it back to Pedro Porro, who likes to whip it in from deep and tries to find the head of someone like a Decky maybe, or usually more likely a Richalison or a Solanke, and that offers its own unique value. And I'd say that there's probably no real better crossers of the ball outside of the top 4 or 5 teams in the Premier League, than Pedro Porro. I think he's actually exceptionally gifted at it, and obviously Tottenham over the last sort of 3 or 4 months, we've seen a massive increase in the amount of usage of that guy. Most touches in the team, most of the games that he plays. He's obviously got an incredible engine. All those things are very valuable. He managed to play so many minutes. I think it's 700 more minutes than any other Tottenham player this season. Stayed injury-free, touch wood, and those things. What do they say? The second best ability is availability, or the best ability is availability. I say the second best ability is unpredictability. And unfortunately with Tottenham, I think that particular position, though, does level up. This is the negative, the kind of the yin and the yang. It does offer some predictability. You know what you're going to get from Pedro Porro. You know what you're going to get from Tottenham when he's in the team and Brennan Johnson's in front, and when the left-hand side is shaped the way we've just spoken about. Brennan Johnson seems to be almost afforded that wiggle room. We were saying this last night on a live stream with Drew Zilla and Jim from Oso Spurs. We were asking the question around whether or not the club, the team, the manager are kind of unofficially allowing Brennan Johnson to focus on doing the things that he does so well, the output merchant, the getting to the back post. And like I say, by the way, it's no disrespect when people say he's just a tapping guy, because I think tapping merchants it's like an invisible talent. It's like an underappreciated talent to know where the ball's going to be, when it needs to be there, and to smash it home. At the end of the day, it's the hardest thing in life to hit the ball over the back, over the white line, and Brennan Johnson is incredibly good at doing it, making the difficult things seem simple. So it's no disrespect, but at the same time, his input stats are not good enough. His work effort is not good enough, and the fact that that's been a consistent theme since pretty much his first day at the club, you have to wonder whether or not that is by design. It's afforded to him by our strategy, and if so, then fair enough. Maybe the sort of ire, the fire, the frustrations around that system shouldn't be aimed at Brennan Johnson. Maybe he's just doing what is asked of him. But either way, there's more to come. And as I say, there should be more to come from him. Either way, when you have Pedro Porro behind him, then he can pick up the pieces and do the things that he does so well. Losing him for £80 million, is that worth it? Where are you going to go next? We don't really have that much talent in the fullback spot, do we? Let's be honest. We're going to be losing Serge Reguilon. Bugsy, come out of there, please. Stop putting the ball in there. We're going to be losing Serge Reguilon for free. We've got Destiny Udogie, who's very, very good, but I mean, he's a left-sided player and probably is more suited to a wing-back situation anyway. Oh, I accidentally hit that guy on the head. No, I didn't. And you have Jed Spence, who can definitely play on both sides, but if you sell Pedro Porro, you're going to have to go again in that market, and that market is not necessarily something that we've got right very often over the last few years. Stay out, please. Stay out here. Bugsy, come out. Out. Come out of there. Stop putting the ball in there. Now, you could go maybe and look for someone like a Gerstruida, a bit of versatility. You could go and get someone like a David Hansco that can play on the left-hand side, and then can just make sure that Jed Spence is very much set up to be a right-sided fullback. But even then, if you're going to sell Pedro Porro, you're going to need to go again. And there isn't that many links out at the moment, guys, regarding fullbacks coming in. What there is more stories around Christian Romero leaving the club. I won't dwell on this one too long for the purposes of the safety of your boredom levels. The other story is Semenyo. This is a story that won't go away. It keeps getting brought up all the time. He is apparently valued at £60 million, a player that Tottenham apparently wants very much. interested in and making it work. Again, though, another winger, another forward player. How many players are we linked with? How many players do we really need? It comes back to the quantity over quality argument. Is he good enough? If he does come in, if there's any truth to it, what does that mean for the likes of the Matisse Tell deal? Are you really going to pay £60 million for him? Are there better players out there anyway that you could go and get that can do a better job as a wide man and as a 9? I think there probably are. I think a lot of you guys were talking yesterday about Brian Mbeumo from Brentford fame. I would love to see Mbeumo coming in. I don't really understand why he hasn't gone to a bigger club yet. Loyalty to the cause, maybe. Loves playing with Thomas Frank. You'd think if Thomas Frank is the next manager, then maybe he'll be the guy that can make that deal happen. And Brentford, have that conveyor belt of talent. It's not as well known as Brighton's conveyor belt of talent, but Brentford certainly have a very, very good track record of using that data as well to be able to find the next players that are coming in. For what it's worth, I also quite like Wissa from Brentford fame. I think there's lots of players out there that can offer us the sort of levels of improvement that we need. Semenyo, I like him, I really do like him, but £60 million, I'm not sure I can get on board that one at that price point. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Here's a story for you. Tim Kleindienst. If you ever wanted to see a team name with a player name that sounded more Bavarian than Bastian Schweinsteiger, remember him? How about Borussia Mönchengladbach's Tim Kleindienst, a striker, 29 years old. He has scored 25 GA this season, 16 goals and 9 assists. The story is out today that Tottenham are front and centre looking at this guy. He's, how do I say this? Well, first of all, the pricing levels is apparently 25 million euros, which would be sort of reasonable for a guy of that sort of calibre. Look, he's getting on in the years. He's not old, but certainly he's not the sort of profile that Tottenham would usually go for. Here's the story for you, though, guys. In my opinion, I would say this is a one to avoid. From what I've seen of him, if you remember, guys, last year or the year before, I was talking to you about Serhou Guirassy and saying, I don't really get how this guy's got in the numbers that he is. He looks clumsy. He looks like it's all by accident. Well, I couldn't have been more wrong about Serhou Guirassy. He absolutely smashed it next year. He smashed it this season in the Champions League. I think he's got 12 goals in the Champions League this season. Incredible return for that guy, and he looks more and more accomplished. Just like maybe I've been wrong about Jonathan David. I'm happy to admit when I get things wrong, I'm just a fan with an opinion, and things can change. And I think that Jonathan David has improved his game to the point where I'd love to see him come in. Serhou Guirassy has improved his game and looks less clumsy now, and is more deliberate. This guy, though, I'm going to take the same stab here and say, clumsy by accident. Don't really think he's good enough for Tottenham by any shape or form, and don't really want him. However, his numbers, don't lie. And if you can get that sort of return, then from the Mönchengladbach team, then he's certainly someone to keep an eye on this summer. But at 29 years old, are Tottenham really going to go in that direction and pay £25 million? I don't think he looks any better than Richalison. Certainly no better than Solanke. So for me, it's a wah-wah. Here's one story for you, last story for you before I let you go, guys, and go and watch the Tottenham game against West Ham at 2 p.m. though this afternoon, not on the TV. That's a frustration, isn't it? We'll have to see if we can get a stream somewhere for that one. Jamie O'Hara, TalkSport's Tottenham boy, saying Jamie Vardy is a player that he would love to see come to Tottenham. He said he's better than... he's not to play every week. He's 38 years old, but he's still physically fit, still banging in goals. I think he got 12 goals this season for Leicester in a terrible team. And he's out of contract and up for a move somewhere. And Jamie O'Hara was saying he would take him at Tottenham in a heartbeat, not to play every game, but to play back up to Solanke, because who's our backup? Again, second big name pundit in a week that has completely overlooked Richarlison. It's like they forget that he plays for Tottenham. Let's be honest, Richarlison's output in terms of minutes played and goals scored is better than Solanke's. And like I say, I'm not Richarlison's biggest fan. I think he's a little bit too one-dimensional. I think he's too emotional. And I think that his injury proneness is kind of the deal breaker for me. I think we should try to move him on and try to take advantage of the fact that he's Brazil's number 9 when he's fit, and use that sort of sales pitch to go and try and get some of our money back from Brazil. But I still wouldn't forget him if asked a question around who are Tottenham strikers, because I think that's disrespectful, and the pigeon shouldn't be underestimated. I thought he did a really good job, unselfishness for the first goal that he put across to Brennan Johnson against Bodo, and I think he'll play a very, very important part on Thursday night, as I expect Tottenham to try to negate the impact of that 4G pitch by putting the ball in the air more, keep it off the floor as much as possible, and try and beat Bodo in the air. We've got some strong opportunities in that regard with Decky if he's going to be playing. Romero's good in the air, as is Solanke now, and Richalison as well. And so is Rodri Bentancur. Pape Sarr's not a mug in the area in the air either. So I think we've got a chance to sort of negate that value, try and get an early goal, and then hopefully things will be great. But guys, that is your Tottenham transfer news, views and clues update. Let me know your thoughts on Ryan Mason leaving the club. Let me know your thoughts on Bugsy shouting, on Tim Klein, shut up, on Xavi coming to Tottenham, Pedro Porro going to Manchester City, and how you would spend the money. Who would you pick? Name me some right backs. Give me some right backs. Drop some names for the right backs that you would see us go after, and I'll do some wide scouting on it and come back to you with my thoughts. Like, subscribe, and comment, guys. And as always, bye bye.